Just might have a hard time.
Miami teams. Okay. All right. All right. Is everybody ready?
Ready.
Okay, perfect. Wow, there's so many people in here today. You guys are like all the way in the back. Can you guys hear me back there? Okay, cool. So last time, I'm just going to kind of recap what we went over last time. So last time we did an intro to the schedule template, and we went over some of the preliminary features. We went over all the different ribbons, where to access different buttons and everything. We set up the calendars. We went through a little bit of regrouping of the activities. And then I can't remember, did we get to assigning text fields in this class last time? Yes, no? Yeah, I know we did it in class 2 or group 2. Okay, we'll recap that again today. And so we also went over just kind of the idea of your float and how you want to manage that. We'll go through that a little bit more in the next class, but you will see it in action today as well when we go build out the activities. Trying to think, we went over adding columns. We did a little bit of adding columns, and then we just went over looking at the different details of the schedule and whatnot. Any questions that anybody has from last time that you'd like to ask before we start today's class? It's okay if you have questions.
I
Okay.
think Larry had a question. He could ask you. Is there
Okay.
a way to easily change font size so that your line items are smaller? You can get more on the screen at a time.
Like when you print it, or
No, I do this main settings. Like I made this. I made that.
yeah.
This where I can read more lines.
Oh, sure.
When you hit the plus and minus, it changes this. But it
Right.
change this.
Right. I think the best way I've seen to do it is really just like change your display settings of your screen.
That's what we just did.
Yeah, because changing the font won't necessarily do what you're wanting it to do.
Okay.
It'll still make it. It won't be to scale with like making everything smaller.
It's like 200% scale.
Oh, right. Yeah, usually I'll do like 100%, which is like kind of small actually, but yeah. Any other questions? All right. So then today we're going to go over turning a task into a milestone. I do think that we covered that last time in this one, but we're going to go over that. We're going to go over creating your outline structure, and then different ways to add activities to the schedule. We'll go over that. And then we'll add in our own set of activities. We'll also go through how to add in the logic. If we get there, we'll go through the rest. We haven't gotten there yet in the other classes. But if we get there, which we probably will today, I think, we'll go over the inspector tool and then tracing back your logic and then just seeing your critical path on your schedule. But that's if we get there. I'd rather go through everything and not rush than, we can cover that next time. So those are pretty much what we'll go over today. Any questions? All right. And then everybody has the schedule template, right? Okay, perfect. I'm going to move this over here. Okay. So does everybody have milestones listed here? Are all of these diamonds in 0 days? Okay, perfect. So to change a task from a task to a milestone, all you do is just make the duration 0 and then you have a milestone. I'm pretty sure we covered that last time. So what we'll do, so first we're going to go through the schedule, and we're basically going to go through the process of when you're making your schedule from the template, the steps that we'll go through to create it to be personalized to our project. So we'll start down here. So everybody scroll down to the site utilities. This one we'll do the site utilities first. Everybody see that? Okay, so we have some of the sections broken out. What we'll do is we'll take the storm drain work. We'll do the same for sanitary sewer and for domestic water, where we have your wet utilities basically as a subsection, and then you have the more customized or more detailed, I should say, subsections underneath. So basically, we're taking the set utilities that are in here and we're customizing it to match the site work of our project. Is everyone clear on that? Okay, perfect. And everybody has storm drain work with the 3 underneath it. Okay, so now we're gonna make a subheading for sanitary sewer work. So first, one way that we can add an activity is to right click on the whole row that you want it to go above. So I'm gonna right click on row 63. Let me make my mouse bigger. Picture of a mouse. Okay, so right click on the row for 63 and then choose insert task. So I just right clicked on the row and said insert task. So it's automatically going to go actually underneath the storm drain work, but because that's the outline level that that activity would be. So now we're just going to take this new task that we added, and then in the task ribbon here, so we added the activity above sanitary sewer work. But now what we want to do is we want to make it a heading. So we want it to go the same level as sanitary sewer. So if I was to collapse storm drain, it's actually underneath it. So we want to outdent it one so that it's not underneath sanitary sewer, or so it's not underneath storm drain. Does that make sense? Okay, so we added the activity, and then in the task ribbon, click the outdent right here. And now you've outdented it where it's no longer underneath the storm drain work. So then you can title that sanitary sewer. Okay, and then we're going to indent the actual task activity underneath it. So we'll just click on now it's row 64 and indent it to the right one. And now we have a setting for sanitary sewer. We'll do that again with the domestic water. So right click on row 65 and say insert task. You can also click the insert key on your keyboard if you have one. If you don't have one, I have one on like my full keyboard. I don't have one here. But if you click the insert key, it's also going to do the same thing as adding a task above the activity that you have clicked on. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing here. We're going to outdent it one to take it out of sanitary sewer. And we'll title it domestic water. And then indent the domestic water work activity underneath it. Are there any of those steps that you guys would like to see again? If you do want to see it again, that's okay. I know it's fast. Okay, so now you should have storm, sanitary, and water utilities. And underneath it, you should be able to actually collapse storm drain work, sanitary sewer work, and domestic water work. Everyone good with that? Okay. And then now, so that we have subhead, so typically your subheadings, it's like an outline where you don't want an outline that's like just an A with no B. You want multiple under the same, or else you're making like an unnecessary level. Do you guys remember, like, I think I learned that in like junior year of high school or something, but like your outlines, you're supposed to have like an A and a B, not just an A, because then you don't need it. So we'll do the same thing here. It's the same concept. And the reason that I like to follow this concept is for the sorting, because if you don't have it leveled that way, then your sort is going to move things around where you don't want them to be. It'll move something around like underneath a section that you don't want it to go under. So if you have everything grouped under sections at the same level, then you won't have that issue. Do you guys know what I'm talking about with that, or have you seen where it'll move things? Yeah. So if you keep things in the same heading, so like the dry and MEP utilities, that could move because it's not underneath its own heading. So what we'll do is we'll make a dry and MEP utilities heading. So this is basically our wet utilities, and then this is our dry utilities, and we'll make a similar heading just like this for the dry utilities so that this stays underneath that grouping and it doesn't move around. So I'll add an activity above 67. All right. And that's not underneath my wet utilities, so I'm good. And I'm going to indent the original activity underneath it. All right. So then you should have big headings for storm, sanitary, and water, and then a big heading for dry utilities. Okay. So once you've added that, and take your time adding it, but once you've added it, collapse it just like I have here, where I have the storm, sanitary, and water collapsed with everything underneath it, and then dry utility collapsed. So then you just have two summary headings. And just kind of like raise your hand when you're ready. Wait a couple seconds. Okay. So now we'll take our colors. So we have the color coding for the different levels. So you can see we have site and earthwork. So now we want whatever's the third color heading. We can either go back into the paint and just find it. They're all this one right here, just for reference. They're all like this first blue. But we can also go down here to the grade work, and we know that this grade work color is the color that we want up here. So click on the whole row for grade work, the whole row 79. And then we're going to use the format painter, which is this paintbrush right here in the task ribbon. You guys see that? Mm-hmm. So the only thing here is once you have the format painter selected, you can't scroll. So you can scroll before. So say that I clicked on the row for 79, I have it clicked on, then I can scroll somewhere else and use the format painter. It'll take that color. But once I click the format painter button, it won't let me scroll on my screen anymore. So just like a user weird thing there. But if you're able to get it all in the same screen, that would be ideal, just because then you don't have to worry about scrolling at all. So click on the whole row for 79. And then click this paintbrush right here. You should get this like cancel icon when you click on it. And then my mouse is, oh yeah. You don't, it's under task. Okay. And mine is going to be hard because my mouse is so big, but try to click on the row that you're trying to carry over the color to. There you go. Well, so I'll do that one more time. So I'm going to click on the whole row for grade work. And that's going to take the formatting from this row when I use the format painter. And it's going to carry that formatting over to the row that I click on. There we go. Okay, is everyone good there? So now expand dry utilities. That's the highest level that we have so far. So that's fine. And then expand the storm, sanitary and water. Now we want to take the next color and carry it over onto this subheading. And these like color carryover stuff, this is stuff that ideally you'll just do in the baseline when you're breaking out your schedule. And then in theory, you don't have to do it again because you've already done that process. And then let's see, I don't know if we've used the next color yet. I don't think we have. So you can click on the cell for storm, sanitary, and water, and click down on the paint bucket up here. So it'll tell you which one is chosen for that cell. Do you guys see that? So it's this one. So we know that the next one down, we just want the color right above it. So we want this second blue for these new subsections that we just created. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to actually highlight the entire rows for all three of these. So I'm going to highlight storm, sanitary, and domestic water at one time. And if you highlight the whole row, do we have add new column shown? Okay, if the add new column is shown, it's going to carry the coloring over to any new columns that you add. If the add new column is not shown, it won't. So just a heads up there. But since we have add new column, it's going to carry over the formatting we're adding to any new columns. So now highlight all three of these new rows and then select the paint bucket for this second shade of blue right here. All right. Any questions on that? Okay. So then the last step here would be to actually add our durations and sequence this the way that we want it to be sequenced. We can go through that process. I guess we don't need to break out sanitary sewer work into more lines unless you guys want to go through that exercise. We'll focus in the building for most of that. But let's put in durations for each of these 3 activities that we have here that still have question marks. So a way that you can know if you're done with your section or not is the big heading will have a question mark if you still have information you have to fill in. So how many days, and this is just like someone can just pick something, how many days do you want to give for sanitary sewer work?
8.
Okay, 8, 10, whatever. Okay, and then what about domestic water? Anybody? Okay, we'll do 5. I heard that one first. And then dry and MEP utilities, let's do 10 days, just for the sake of giving durations. And if your durations are different, that's okay. That's not what's important in this case. Okay, so now we'll go through and we'll actually add logic to this section so that we can sequence and tie this in how we want it to be tied in. I know that we went over the link tool button that last time, but we'll go over it again. So let's say that you want to do your storm drain work in the order that it's shown here. So you can either click on them one by one. So I'm going to click on the first one and use my control key and click on the second one. And then you can hit the link tool. That will tie those 2 together. You can also, I'm going to hit undo. You can also use your shift key. And I'm going to click on the first one and then use my shift key, click on the last one. And I can use the link tool again. That will tie all 4 of them, finish to start, top down. So I'll do that one more time. So here you can see that they're not tied into anything. They're just all starting at the beginning. So I'm going to click on the first storm line A, and I'm going to hold my shift key and click storm line D, and then select my link tool. And that's going to tie them all together, finish to start from the top down. Okay. I'll do that one more time. So what I did is I clicked on the first one and then hold your shift key on your keyboard and click on the last one. You should have all 4 highlighted.
David, you may have held control instead of shift.
Yeah, probably. No, it's okay. That is all right. So then another way, so we just tied that in using the shift key. We showed the control key, also the shift key. Let's say that after storm line A, you're going to start sanitary sewer work. So you can click on storm line A and then hold your control key down and click on sanitary sewer work and then select the link tool. So I'm going to click storm line A, hold my control key, click sanitary sewer, and I'm going to choose the link tool. So that's going to put the sanitary sewer after storm line A. And let's do the same. Let's say you're going to do sanitary sewer before you do domestic water. So we can do the same, hold the control key, click on sanitary sewer, and then with your control key, click on domestic water and choose your link tool. Yeah. The colors.
Yeah, the colors.
So that's because last time, so that's in this task path. We have these selected. So if you want to turn off your colors, what it's going to do is everything orange is the path driving to that activity. Everything yellow is what's coming off of it. So let's go to the format or the Gantt chart format, whatever yours is called. And then right here in task path, it's right underneath the format name. Click the drop down for task path. And then the ones that have boxes around them are the ones that are activated. So if you want to turn those off so that your colors don't show like they do right here, you can turn off driving predecessor and you can turn off driven successors. So now it won't it won't highlight those. That's part of like tracing back your logic. It's really helpful as you're going through and checking your work on your project and like checking what things are tied to. But we don't necessarily need to have that on right now. Yeah. Oh yeah. You could do also just any successor, which would be it's not just driven by it, but it's any successor. That's a option as well. That's helpful if you have like a delayed delivery and you want to see everything that comes after this delivery, then you can click on it and see everything that turns in purple is everything that follows the sequence of that delivery at some point or another. Okay, so then now let's tie in the dry utilities to be after be after all three: storm, sanitary, and domestic water. So another way that you can tie in activities, instead of using your clicking back and forth, you can actually just type in this column for predecessors and you can type the row number. So we know that we wanted to follow storm drain work. So let's pick the last storm drain work, this line 62. And we can actually just type into this cell for predecessors a 62. And that'll tie those together. Undo that. I'm going to show my arrows just so that you guys can see it. I'm going to show like my relationship lines. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to type in a 62 here, and that's going to tie storm line D to the dry utilities. Can you guys see this arrow that just appeared? Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have the sanitary also be before dry utilities and domestic water. So you can actually type in, you can do 62 and then a comma, and you can type in the next one. So a comma, and then I'm going to type 64, comma, 66. And I'm just looking at the row numbers of the activities that I want to tie them to. So 62, 64, and 66. So I'm just actually just typing into this cell 62, 64, 66. And when I hit enter, you'll see that those relationship lines just appeared coming off of those activities. It does. It defaults to finish to start. So if you wanted to change it, you can click on, so say the domestic water right now, it's following the completion of sanitary sewer. Say that it can start 5 days in instead of following the completion. So once you have it tied in, which we have it right here as a finish to start, then you can actually click in your details and you can change the type from a finish to start to a start to start +5. So all we did was click on the domestic water activity. It's already tied into sanitary sewer. So now instead of being a finish to start, we're going to make it the type a start to start with a 5-day lag. And then you'll see here on the Gantt chart, now it's saying start to start +5 days. You're going to start domestic water. So I'll do that one more time. So it's already tied in finish to start. That's the default. So then I'm going to change it here from a finish to start, and this is in the details, to a start to start +5. And then we have a start to start plus a 5-day lag. Questions on that? You can click on task, the task ribbon, and then details right here. It may not have the word details. Yeah? Sure. Yeah. If you want to show you, sure. If you want to show the relationship lines, right click in the Gantt chart and where it says layout. And then normally this is, normally this is bigger. Does anyone have like bigger icons here? Okay. So it's just these here. You can select which one you want. The first one is no lines. And then this is like curvy lines. This is more square lines. You're welcome. The relationship lines I usually turn off at the end, like when you're making a printout, but it can be helpful when you're going through this process of tying in your schedule, just because it'll show you, it'll show you what you have tied in. I'm going to hide some of these columns just so that I can see more on here. If you want to hide a column as well, you can just right click on the column and say hide. And that's all you do to get rid of the column. I just want to have more space on my screen. Okay. Any questions on the methods that we've used to tie activities in so far? So we went over using your control key and using your shift key. We've gone over just typing into the cell for the predecessors. Let's add the column. So expand your bar in the center a little bit. And to the left of area, right click on the top of area and say insert column. So right click on the top and say insert column. And then start typing in the word successors. And you'll get the column for successors. Again, if you missed that, so you're going to right click on the column that you want it to go to the left of. So right click on area, insert column, and then start typing in the word successors, and you'll get the successor column. All right. So you can also, so we did the finish to start to a start to start for domestic water by changing it in the details. You can also actually just type in 64 SS plus 5, and that'll do the same thing. So if you do know what it's going to be right away, you can do it all at once without making it finish to start and then changing it. You can also just type in the start to start plus whatever number in the cell. Okay. Another way that you can tie things in, let's go to the irrigation and landscaping section. And this is your own preference. Let's say irrigation is 10 days and landscaping is 15. I'm just making them like longer so that it's easier to see the bars. So we went down to landscaping, irrigation 10 days, landscaping 15. Okay. So you can actually click on the whole bar. So when you have this cursor right here, so I'm hovering over the irrigation bar, and I'm going to click on it with this cursor, and I'm actually going to drag. So do you see how now there's a big link icon? So I'm actually saying I'm taking this irrigation, which has a little box around it, which is really small, but there's a box. And then when I get a box around landscaping, so right now there's no box on landscaping, but if I drag down, then there is. That's another way that you can tie things finish to start. So it's going to say finish to start link from task 75 to task 76. So that's what this like pop-up window is reading. But so I'm clicking on the landscaping and I'm going to drag down to, or irrigation, I'm going to drag down to landscaping. And that will tie that together as well. So that's another way that you can tie in the logic if you like to do it from the bars. So I'll do that one more time. I'm going to click on irrigation and drag. And then now I have like a little line here to landscaping. And now those are finished to start with each other as well. Okay. Any questions on the methods that we've gone over to tie things in? Anything that you guys want to see again? Okay, perfect. So now we'll go into the building. So what we're going to do is our first step, we're going to go to the grade work and we're going to replace this with a more detailed sequence of activities. So I'm going to pull this up here. So we're going to break out the grade work that's shown here, right here. We're going to break it out into this detail on the Word document. So just change that. So we want to have 8 activities with these task names and these durations. So again, to add an activity, you can right click on the row number and you can say insert task. You can also actually just click in the task ribbon. You can actually just click on this plus sign task button and that'll add a task. And you can hold the insert key on your keyboard and that'll add a task. So whichever method you like, either you like to hit this button, or if you want to do the right click on the row and add a task, it doesn't matter. Whichever method you like, we're going to add in this list of activities with these durations, and we're replacing the 3 that are in there already. We're adding this to the schedule. This is just like a Word document. So just add, yeah, type it, yeah. Yeah. So we made the, last time we made the task or the default font Arial. I think it has to do with if your computer has the other one on it. That's just my guess because mine was doing the same thing and I don't have the Futura. But you can highlight your entire schedule and make it all Arial.
That's what I
Mhm.
know, like why it, but if you make the automatic one.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to do
Mhm.
it like automatic.
Yeah, and you can change, you can, yeah, if you want to change it, go to the Gantt chart format and then text styles. And you can change your default font to Futura if you have it. Yeah. Sure. If you want to change the whole, so if you want to change the font for everything, you can actually click on this first cell here to highlight everything in your schedule. And then you can change the font in the task ribbon to Arial if you want to do Arial for everything. So now everything's in Arial, which looks pretty similar. And if you want to change the default, go to Gantt chart format and then text styles. And this is going to change the default for everything new. So I'm going to do the same, or I don't know what my font size is. Let's see, it looks like it's 11. So I'm going to say everything's going to be Arial size 11. And then for the default text styles, I'm going to do the same and say Arial and then 11. And then every new activity will be that same format. I just took off all my bold though. I wouldn't click regular, it took off all my bold. So I'm just gonna do Arial 11. There we go. Yes, yes. So if you wanna make it size 10, do you wanna do size 10? Then highlight the whole thing and then you can make it all size 10, or you can highlight the whole thing. You may have to do both steps, I'm not sure. Highlight everything, text styles, and you could do Arial, and you could do size 10. Yeah, they do look a little bit bigger. You can make your summary headings different. Like if you do the text styles, you can say just summary tasks, and you can say Arial bold size 11. Hmm. Yes.
You know that top bar that you're saying up there?
Yes, the entry bar. This one.
His like completely like.
Oh, this whole thing.
Yeah, that's.
On this far right, do you see the arrow? Does it have anything with like a pin? I have always show ribbon on. Do you have full screen mode or show tabs only? Oh, sure. Do you still have an arrow? It might just be up here. Okay. What about when you click on a ribbon? Does it come back? Okay, what about if you say always show ribbon? Yours is just a pin or not a pin?
Yeah.
Okay. Yours is like a pan icon right here. Okay.
It's that up arrow. That up arrow makes it flat.
It's like terrifying when it goes away. Yeah. All right. Oh, sorry. I'll put this back on the screen. There you go. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. hmm That's what I'm going to do on mine. Yes, when you hit enter, it's going to autocorrect your spelling. So like it'll autocorrect if you have like the first two letters capitalized, it'll autocorrect it to be like only the first. As long as your spelling is like relatively close to the word you're trying to write, yeah. Yeah, you can do it in the proofing also, like which is the like file options. There's proofing, and you can like tell it certain words are real. Like you can tell it punch list is a real word, or you can like add in whatever words that you want it to not autocorrect. Well,
Or when you guys are
punch list is like always underlined. It's like always underlined as like an incorrect word. No, punch list. Yeah, like I don't know. I spell lots of things wrong, so not my forte. Like refrigerator, like does not have a D, but fridge has a D. Like I just, like that's one of the things I just like I don't get it. But
a lot of things I don't get.
yeah. Spelling's like just,
Flammable and inflammable mean the same.
oh. Wait, really? Inflammable means that it is flammable?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Thank you.
That's what I would think.
Inflammable. Look it up in the dictionary. Inflammable.
That's wild.
It's capable of catching fire.
We can pull up Google right now.
Huh.
Inflammable.
I mean, that
Type
makes
in
sense.
Google.
It makes sense.
I don't want to be. Like, inoperative means it's not operative.
Right.
Look at inflammable. Read it to the class.
Easily set on fire.
That's wild.
Like you do.
Yeah. All right.
Picture square.
Yeah.
Just like our eyes, like we actually see everything upside down. And then when
Okay. Is everybody done typing in their activities? Okay. So another thing that you can do, this is really helpful with like adding in like a bunch of submittals or something. But I'm gonna copy all of these cells in the table. So they do have to be in the order here as your Microsoft project. So right here where it says task description and then duration, the columns do have to be in that order, which mine are task name and duration. If I had the duration like over here, this is not going to work because it's in a different spot. So it does have to read in the same order that you have them in. So I'm going to scroll back down. So I have a placeholder here for 8 activities. So I'm going to go back to the table and I'm going to highlight all 8 of these for those 2 cells. And I'm going to copy. And then I'm going to go back to Microsoft Project. I'm going to right click on the first cell of data that I'm pasting into. So I'm going to right click on this first name cell. I'm going to say paste special and text data. That's going to not override my formatting if I do it this way. Otherwise, it's going to carry over the formatting that's in the Word document because they're both Microsoft. So I'm going to say, so I went over to the Word document. I copied these eight activities with the duration, right click and copy. And then in Microsoft Project, I'm going to right click in the first cell, paste special, and text data. And now I have all of those activities with the durations that I want in here. You can also scroll down to the very bottom and you can do the same thing. And you can paste them at the bottom if you don't want to count your rows and, you know, add in the right number. And then from here, you can actually highlight all the ones that you just added and you can do cut. And then you can paste them into the section that you want them to go into. So if you don't want to count your rows, you could do it that way. Right. If you, right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can't you just drag?
You could. Dragging's not my skill, so you could, yes. It's hard for me to drag without having like a monitor where it's bigger. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little challenging. But yes, you can drag it. You can drag it.
Well, I built a mouse because when she's doing that, it's like me hitting the key. I hit 5 keys.
Any questions on that, or do you guys want to see that again? Any questions on how we copied and pasted? Everyone comfortable with that?
When you copy and paste, can you do it from Bluebeam or does it have to be a Word document?
You can, Bluebeam just may have some like issues. It's easier to do it from like either Excel, like you could do it from Excel if you wanted to do that, or you could do it from Word. You could, like in theory, you can do it from Bluebeam, but just since the formatting doesn't match up the same, it may paste it in the wrong columns. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I typically do is I'll do that.
And then you pasted it over Foundation's peers, red beans.
Mhm.
I guess you intended to get rid of that.
Yes, yeah, I was replacing over that.
You can just highlight this.
Mhm.
Hit shift on 80.
Yeah, this is just like a table in my Word document. It's just a table, but yeah, you could do a list. A table pastes the best. I would do a table in Word or in Excel for the least amount of error when you're pasting, because then it's going to read it the same. The others, in theory, will work. It may add like weird spacings and stuff into your name. All right. Any other questions before we continue on with adding our logic to the grade work? Okay. Also, if you had if you had like a submittal log where you have the different submittals, so say that in my Word, I'm going to say like submittal, I'll say like concrete submittal, and then concrete review, then like rebar fabrication. I'm just like making examples in here. I'll say like metal decking submittal. So if you had it like this, so say that you had your submittals that are listed like this, I can copy all of this at once. I can paste it to the bottom and say paste special text. And then from here, you can actually, this is a summary heading that I didn't show you guys before. You can actually highlight all three of the concrete and then you can summarize it. And this will be concrete submittal. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to highlight all three for metal decking, summarize it. This will be the metal decking submittal. And I can actually highlight all of those together, summarize, and this is the submittals for the schedule. So yeah. Mm-hmm. So those are just like, you don't have to follow along with that, but just for if you do have like a Procore export that's in Excel or something, you can put this into the schedule fairly easily by doing those. I'll do that one more time just so you guys can see it. I'll do it from the paste. So once I pasted it, and I can go both directions. Like I can highlight everything at once, summarize, and say submittals. And then I can click on the ones underneath it and make the subheadings after that. Summarize, concrete submittal, and then highlight all three, summarize, and then metal deck submittal. Any questions on that or anything that you guys would like to see further on that? Okay. And then from here, once you have this broken out, you can actually collapse the entire submittals. And then from here, if you're good at dragging, you can drag. I'm gonna cut it, and it has to be collapsed for the cut and paste to work right. Otherwise, it's gonna try to transfer your links, or it's gonna leave some of your links off. So if you collapse the entire summary heading, then there's less error with the paste. So then I'm gonna cut from here. I'm gonna say continue, delete submittals and its subtasks. And then I'm gonna scroll up to where I want it to go. And then I'll say paste. So now this section that I just added in is right here. So those are just like functions that you can use that'll just make it a little bit easier if you do have the data already typed out somewhere. Any questions on that? I don't know. Does Autodesk export to a spreadsheet?
Yes,
Okay.
it does, but
Okay, so you may have to like modify it from Bluebeam a little bit or something. Yeah, I don't know. But if you're able to get the information exported into like lines, then yeah. All right. So now that we have our grade work, let's tie this together, and you can use your own discretion and whichever way that you'd like to tie them in. But tie everything in this section together and have some things like overlap with each other so that it's not all just finish the start logic. Everyone clear on that? Okay, so we're just adding in the logic to this section of the schedule, and you can just choose your own logic for it. But just use the different tools that we've done today for how to add in the logic. So if you like typing in the cell, then you can just type in the cell to add it. But all we're doing is just tying together this new chunk of activities that we just added. And we don't all have to have the exact same sequence. It's just whichever sequence you like. And you can use whichever method you like of adding in the logic that you prefer.
July 4th is in here if it's screwing up.
All right. All right. Anybody still working on it? It's okay if you are. Okay. Okay, perfect. So everybody has their grade work tied in, and it's probably ending around somewhere in July. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now our next step, so we have the grade work done, so we have our foundations. So now we're going to choose which structure applies to our project. So of these listed, someone can just choose which structure applies to the project that we're building.
Tilt wall.
Okay. So if we want it to be tilt wall, then we can actually just click on the headings for the ones we're getting rid of, and we can delete. And if you delete the heading, it's going to delete the subtasks underneath. So I'm going to right click on the pre-engineered metal building and then say delete, and then delete the subtasks. I'm going to do the same for CMU, delete the subtasks. And you can do multiple at a time. I'm going to use my control key and click on structural steel framing and wood framing. And I'm going to delete both of those as well. So we're just getting rid of the ones from the template that don't apply to us. Okay. So now our next step is deciding if this is the sequence that we want reflected for this set of activities. So is this what we want, or is there anything here that you guys want to modify for our project? Or does this breakdown of activities look good? Good. Okay, so now we'll put, if this looks good, now we'll plug in the durations. So how many days do you want to say for the first one? 1 day. And then what about the second one? 15 days. Third one. So we're just saying for our project, these are the durations that we have for this project that we're building. Erect panels, how many days? Okay, primary steel. Okay. Secondary. And then joist and decking. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I feel like you had one of mine.
Okay. So, and I mean, the durations, you'll get those from sub input or just your own discretion, whatever. But this is just the process that we'll go through. So then from here, so now we say, okay, we have our structure activities built out. We have our durations. So now we need to tie in the logic, not only between this section, but also how it's going to go back to the foundations. So let's start with just tying in the activities in this section. And what order do you want these activities to go in? Somebody want to choose? Somebody can pick. Do you want to just do it in order? Do you want any overlap, or do you want to just do them in order?
Yeah, just do it.
Okay, sounds good. The last class, people really wanted to switch it up, so we like moved everything and split stuff. Okay, so I just did this shift. So I just did all of them, and you can either click and drag all of them, or you can use the shift key and link them together. It's going to do them all finish to start. If that's the way that we're going to do this with no overlap, I feel like we got the overlap with the site utilities and stuff, so we're good there. So then how do you want this to be kicked off? Do you want this to be after you pour the slab, after you cure the slab? Okay, so we're going to tie then, you can either click in the cell for cure and type in 98, or you can just do your control click and tie those in together. So now it's starting to look more like a schedule for our building. So if you need to, just take your time to build this out. But basically, we're saying all the tilt walls in order. This is all just finished to start, and it's going to follow the cure slab. Just tie the cure slab as a predecessor to the FRP casting beds. So you can either do that by dragging. If you like the drag, you could click on it and you can drag from cure slab over to the casting beds. Really small. There we go.
Individual unit,
Yeah.
All it all together, like,
Yeah, the control key is easiest for me. Are you trying to drag and make it have like start to start logic with the bars?
He's trying to drag in. Yeah, he's.
That should be the default, or what do you mean?
He's already got the logic built in.
But for it to be like a finish to finish.
Oh. I think you have to modify it in the details, or yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I know that like other softwares do let you do that, but I haven't seen this one actually like work successfully doing that. But once you tie it together, you can either just change it to be, like you could change this to be finish to finish. Which one? Let's see. You could say like 100 FF. That'll make it finish to finish. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on this? Is anyone still working on it? It's okay if you are. And does everyone have a date that's around middle of September? Okay. No? Oh, you do? Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we'll move down to the exterior unless anyone needs more time or has any questions. And it's totally okay if you need more time, that's fine. Mhm. Sure. Right click in the Gantt chart and then choose layout. I think you turn them on and off. Okay. Who's done with everything through the joists and decking? Okay. A couple more people. Oh, yeah. You want to turn off the save, go to File, and then go to Options. And then it's under Save. And then Autosave. So does yours do that every time?
Yeah, well, I think on this new one. Since
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so go to File, and then Options at the bottom. Yeah, I always keep mine off just because I hit Save on my keyboard a lot anyway. It's also just like annoying to pop up. Yeah, not every.
I put mine for an hour.
I mean, it is helpful because then if you walk away, it'll like hopefully prompt you to save it. I wish it just like saved it without prompting you to save it, but also when you save, you can't undo anymore.
That's what I always
So
do.
yeah,
Get to where
right.
get to a certain spot and go, okay,
Yeah. Yeah, I would save. I mean, just like personally, I save like when I'm done with each section, usually. All right. Okay, so now we'll go through the exterior and shell. So similar to what we did for the structure, we're going to choose which of these activities apply to our project. So really what we're going to look at primarily is like the masonry through the storefront and glazing. So which exterior, is there anything in here that we want to say does not apply to our project? Anything that we don't have on our project? Okay, so we'll get rid of veneer. So right click on veneer and delete it, or click on the row number, delete it. As long as you're clicked on the row itself and not just the cell for the name, you'll be able to delete it that way. So I just clicked on the whole row number and then right click and delete. Okay, so you want to make the same thing. So we'll say storefront and glazing, and then we'll delete glazing. And then do you want to break out this into more detail? Let's.
Yeah, most of the time they just have like.
Okay, what detail do you want to keep in here? Just EIFS? Okay. This is obviously just going to be dependent on like your real project for what you have. But if you want it, so say that we wanted this to be broken out like by elevations or something, or you wanted to do by roofing and then by like exterior skin or something like that. Is there, what do you prefer to do as the example? Okay, sure. Okay. Okay. So let's click on roofing and HVAC equipment. Let's highlight those two activities and let's summarize those together. So I'm just going to click on these two activities. I'm going to click and drag to highlight both and then choose summary and call this roofing. And then let's click on sheathing and waterproofing through the caulking and sealants. So I'm going to click on the next chunk of activities and do the same summary. And we'll call this exterior finishes. Okay. Anybody want to see that again? I'll do that. I'll do it again just in case. Okay, so I clicked on the first two activities. I just clicked and dragged to highlight both of them. And then summarized. This is roofing. And then I'm going to click on the next chunk of activities. And I'm in the task ribbon and I'm clicking summary. So summarize, and I'm saying exterior finishes. So now let's click on everything again under exterior finishes. So click and drag on everything under exterior finishes and make a summary again. And let's call this one west elevation. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste the west elevation grouping into the other three. But first, let's add in the durations and tie in the logic just for this individual grouping before we do that. And let's do it for roofing too. So how many days do we want for roofing? 10. Okay. And then we'll have HVAC equipment after the roofing for 3 days. Okay. Perfect. And then sheathing and waterproofing, how many days? Okay. EIFS, 15. Metal panels. Okay. Storefront and glazing, 20. And then caulking and sealants. And do you want these to all be in order finish to start, or do you want it to vary from that? Sure. So let's first tie them all together. So we have the durations. I'll give you guys a second to catch up with the durations. We did 15, 15, 5, 25. So first, I'm going to click on all of them. I'm going to highlight all of them together. And I'm going to do my link tool so that they're all finished to start. But then now let's modify them so that some of these do overlap with each other. So what overlap do you want between sheathing and waterproofing and your EIFS? Okay, so now that we have it finished to start, let's change this to be a start to start plus 5 days. Okay, and then any overlap between EIFS and metal panels? No? What about storefront and metal panels? Start to start? Okay, so we're going to go storefront and have that be a start to start with the metal panels. And then we can leave caulking and sealants at the end. So really what you would want to do here, so sheathing and waterproofing is called an open finish because the finish of this activity is never going to push anything out. That's because the only successor is a start to start. So really we want to also have the successor of whatever you can't start until this is fully finished. So let's say that the sheathing and waterproofing also ties to the exterior metal panels, to the start of that. So if this was to, for some reason, take like 30 days, it's not going to push anything out. But if instead, if that also had a successor of metal panels, and then it took 30 days, then it will push out the chain. So these are just the things that you want to look for just for your float values so that if you do have it's really preventative for if you do have a delay, it'll track it properly or like it'll push out the right thing and you don't have to modify your schedule in order to show that delay. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's just called an open finish.
Start.
Hmm.
Change the critical.
finish start?
It would be this, well, so a finish to start is like technically not like a proper logic tie, just because it's like going back in time.
From the finish when we're
Yeah, just because then if it ends up taking longer, then it's gonna push out, right, yeah. So it's not risky as far as it's not an open finish, it's just not, it's like backwards tracing logic, just technically.
It's better to go and start.
Um,
So if something pushes-
yeah.
Unless that pushes.
Right. Because like maybe it's only the first 5 days are impacting your ability to start the next activity, not necessarily the finish minus a certain time frame. But that's like your own discretion with, with whatever. So, but personally, I don't use the negative lags just for that reason. Okay. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to close up the open finishes. So sheathing and waterproofing also has metal panels. We also have an open finish from metal panels. So I'm going to say that that goes to the caulking and sealants. So now you can see on the arrows that everything has an arrow coming off the end of it. And this is just like one of those like just technical detail things to check to make sure that if you were to be delayed, it's going to push out the proper thing. Any questions on that or what we're looking at there? Okay, perfect. Okay. So what we could do is sheathing and waterproofing. When do you want this to start? Okay, so after roofing's finished, so let's tie the roofing to the sheathing and waterproofing. And then when do you want the roofing to start? Joist and deck? Or something else? Okay, so after joist and deck, we'll go to roofing. Okay. Say start plus. Okay, so we tied the roofing to follow the joist and deck, and then we have the sheathing and waterproofing following the roofing. Any questions on that? Okay. So now collapse the grouping for west elevation. So hit the arrow to the left of it and collapse it so that now all the activities are hidden underneath it. Then right click on the whole row number 109 or whatever your number is. Click on the whole row number, copy it, and then click on interior finishes because we want it to go above the one that we're clicking on. So click on the row right below it, right click and paste. So now we have 2 west elevations. So I'll do that one more time. So I clicked on the whole row for west elevation while it was collapsed and right click and copy. And then I'm going to right click on the row I want it to go above and paste. So now I have exterior finishes, west elevation, west elevation. So let's rename this one south elevation. Okay. So the risk that you run with copying and pasting the sections is you can see the sheathing and waterproofing is still following the roofing. So it does carry over external logic ties when you do the copy and paste. So if you wanted to, you could tie in just the section, but not tie in anything that it's coming off of so that you don't carry over like external logic ties with that grouping. In this case, they all have to follow the roofing anyway, so we can leave it. But if you're copying and pasting to like different levels, you don't necessarily want like level 2 tied to level 4. So those may be things that you might just do the logic in your grouping first and then copy and paste, and then you can tie them together from one floor to the next. Does that make sense? Okay, does everyone see that, how that logic tie came over with it? Okay, so the one that we copied had it following roofing. So then the paste of it is also following roofing. Okay, so then let's collapse the south elevation, or you can keep the west collapsed, it doesn't matter. And then let's paste this, let's copy it and paste it 2 more times so that we have each of the 4 elevations. Once you're done with that, take the format painter and copy over the colors from the other sections in our schedule onto the new sections that we added. Any questions so far on this? Okay. Am I going too fast or is it good? Okay, perfect. Okay, so when you're ready, the next step will be to say what's the relationship from each elevation to the next. So what's going to drive it? Is it going to be the sheathing and waterproofing? Is going to have a crew and go from one to the next? Is it going to be the EIFS? Let's say for this, let's say that sheathing and waterproofing is going to stagger around the building. Let's also say that the storefront and glazing has one crew. And the reason I say that is because sheathing and waterproofing is 15 days. So each one will be staggered by 15, but storefront and glazing is 20. So that's going to need more stagger, or it'll overlap five days of that, which you may have the crew for that. We don't know. But for this example, let's say sheathing and waterproofing is going to tie from one section to the next. So you can click on all four at one time. If you hold your control key, it's going to tie them in the order that you click them in. So I'm going to say sheathing to sheathing and waterproofing to the east elevation to the north elevation. So I'm going to click on the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, and then the link tool. Okay. Yes, correct. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So say that we didn't have the storefront and glazing tied in yet. Go to the, normally we would do this by putting the trades in and then assigning them. We can go through that process now if you'd like to, or we can just group a different way. Do you want to go through that process of assigning the trades to each activity right now? Okay, so let's add a column to the left of predecessor. Did we create the text field column last time for subcontractor? Okay, I think it's in here. I think it's in this file. Oh, it is. Okay. So you can either move a column. So I guess it's already in here next to area for subcontractor. So this is a text field. So we didn't create this last time. Okay, so let's add a column then, insert a column and start typing in the word text. And then choose one of the text fields that does not have a name next to it. So we're going to go through the process of how you would create this. So let's choose text 3 down here. So I started typing in the word text in a new column. I'm going to choose text 3. And we're going to make this field like a user-defined coding field, essentially. So we already have the one created in Subcontractor because we made that one last time, but this is how you would do it. So let's rename text 3 by triple clicking on the heading. So triple click on the heading of text 3 and then start renaming it to what you want to rename it to. So let's say that we'll just say responsible party and pretend like we don't have a subcontractor in there. So say responsible party and click enter. So now you've actually renamed your column heading responsible party, but you've actually renamed the data for it as well. So if I was to go and re-add that text 3 column, it actually says responsible party next to it because that's what we just defined as the name. Does that make sense? Okay, so all we did is we triple clicked on the top of it. So I'm going to re-add that column. I don't know if it does the undo. No, it doesn't do the undo, but so basically all we did was we triple clicked on the top and that's how we changed the name. So then you can also search responsible party and it's going to show up backwards as well. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So now, oh, if you do it through the field setup, it's going to just temporarily change the name. Yeah, like if you just do the field settings, then it'll just be temporary for like a printout. So like you could change a field that's like in here, like you could right click on duration and say field settings, and you can change this to like DUR, but it's not going to keep that as the name. It's going to change it back each time. I don't know why it does that. Yeah, oh yeah, you can do that. It's just not necessarily going to stay when you hide the column and then add it back. Okay, so let's go through and let's start with building. We don't need to necessarily do everything before, but starting with the first activity in the building, assign responsible parties to your activities, and you can just make it up. But like I'm just going to say layout and grade pad. Let's say that that's the concrete crew. I'm going to say concrete crew for this. And assign a responsible party from everything from layout and grade pad through the end of your building. And this is just like your own choice for what you want to call it. But this would basically be like your subcontractor that's doing the work. Once you have it typed in, you can copy the cell and paste it into something else. You can also click on the cell and you can drag the data down to carry over. So this is like just like Excel when it's a user field like this. So let's say for underground utilities, we realize that, oh, there's actually 2 responsible parties. We have plumbing and we have electrical. I'm going to click on the whole row for 90 and then copy. And I'm actually going to paste the row and just duplicate it. And I'm duplicating it with the logic in here. So because I copied and pasted it with logic on it, it's going to keep that same logic. And I'm going to say one of these is underground electrical. The other one is underground plumbing. Did I lose anybody on that? You could, yes. So if you copy and paste in this case, in this case, I would want to copy and paste because I want my logic to carry over because I'm saying, oh, these are actually 2 5-day activities that are going on at the same time. But say that your plumber showed up late or they were delayed for some reason. You don't want it to penalize electrical by having it as one activity. You want to be able to track that where your plumbers came late and took longer or something like that. So that would just be the benefit is it's just more detailed tracking if you do encounter any delays. And then it doesn't encompass that both of them, were delayed, just one of them. If you can get this, you can drag it. So I typed in my first one into the west elevation. You can click and highlight all of them and copy, and then you can paste it into the next section for what you did. So I right-clicked on the whole, or I didn't right-click, I just clicked and dragged on all of it. Right-click and copy, and then you can paste that into the same, it does have to be in the same order, but if it's in the same order like ours is, you can just paste. Okay. When you're done through the caulking and sealants, kind of like raise your hand. You're done through that. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I added some of them in. Okay, so now, so we have the exterior finishes tied in where they're with the sheathing and waterproofing. I have not yet tied in the storefront and glazing on purpose for this next step. So now click on the top of responsible party for this drop-down arrow. So click on the drop-down arrow here and select group on this field. Drop-down arrow of responsible party, and then I'm saying group on this field. Now you should see your schedule sorted by everything that you just typed in. All right. Everybody see that? All right. So now if we look at our EFS, that looks good. So none of these are overlapping. They're not tied to each other because there's no logic ties between them, but they're not overlapping. But if you scroll down to the storefront and glazing, we see that these are overlapping with each other. So this is a way that you can check and see if you're stacking crews or if you need to, if you need to stretch things out. So we knew that this would be a problem, but this is how you could identify it, especially if you're doing like a high rise or something with a lot of floors. You can see if you are stacking crews between levels or between buildings or something like that. So while you're in this view, you can actually tie these finish to start in this view so that you remove that trade stacking that you have in here. So I'm going to click on storefront and glazing. I'm just going to hold my shift key just like we do in the other view. And I'm going to tie those together, finish to start. Okay. So I'll do that one more time. So this is just like in the other view. We don't want our crew to be in two places at once. So we're going to click on all four of them and we're going to tie these together, finish to start, so that now our one crew is not in two places at once. All right. Okay. So this is really beneficial when you're going through and you're just like checking everything at the end. You can also click on the responsible party drop down again and say no group. So we're going to get rid of this grouping, say no group. But what you could also do is in the responsible party, click the drop down again. And you can actually choose, let's say that we only want to see concrete and electrical for whatever reason. We just want to see those two. So you can click on those two and say, okay, and it's going to filter your schedule for just those two trades. So all I did was click on this drop down arrow and I'm just selecting which ones I want to see. So I'm going to say, let's filter for all the MEPs. So I'm going to say electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. Okay, now I see the work for just that. So you could actually print out like just the concrete crews work, and you can print out that on a schedule so that they only have their work on here. So once you have that responsible party assigned, those are just other functions that you can use it for as well. Any questions on that? Yeah, you can. Yeah, so you could do like filters, and it lets you choose like different ones that you want. You could say next quarter, it'll show you everything for the next quarter. You can also do custom and let you choose your actual dates. But if you do the between, this is where it's going to give you a date range that you can type in for that. I'm going to say clear filter from start, and now it's going to show everything. So you can use the filters here for whatever, I mean, really it's for your own use. It's for your own like maneuvering around the schedule for how you like to show these filters. So now if we scroll back down to the exterior finishes, now you'll see that there's more of a stagger between them, and the storefront and glazing is no longer overlapping. So on this last one, you actually have a gap here of about 10 days, or maybe 15 days, I'm not sure. But you have a gap here because now it's no longer overlapping. Right. Any questions on that? So now let's go through the last section for interior finishes and break out what you need to make it one trade per activity. So I'm going to break out the MEP overhead and then the MEP fixtures, but do the same thing, and we're going to just arbitrarily assign your durations that you want and assign your logic that you want to each activity so that we can finish out tying together our building. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is just your own choice for how you want to tie it in. But basically all we're doing is we're just finishing tying together our building so that from the grading work through the end is one chunk of building that's all tied in together. So when you're ready for it, you can do it whenever you want in the process, but go to the Gantt chart format or the format at the end and activate critical tasks by clicking the check mark on critical tasks. Then you should see a big chunk of your schedule turn red. So it's under format here, and then it's the check mark for critical tasks. It should be right underneath the format word. And then not only your bars will turn red, but the critical logic ties will also be red. So if it's coming off a critical task, then the arrows, if you still have relationship lines shown, those will also be red. Are your schedules, are they starting to look like schedules in the building? Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone's very quiet, so. Is anybody done tying it all in? Okay. To the restroom. I'll be right back. I know, I'm not going to take it with me.
Got it all the way home.
Birthday party.
Celebrating another birthday?
Mother's. They're going on vacation on
They're not gonna tell you. But show up.
all the owners meeting because they were take care of the dogs. Thanks, we got you. Oh, me and my brother were. Howard. I told my brother, I was like, "Good. Two kids that are both in high school. And summertime.
There you go. Yes, mother.
I look more to it. Don't know what.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
Randy was offering the shining of.
Got first corner. Yeah, that's about right. Actually, pretty good. $3 in gas.
Good. Okay. Is everyone good with the logic and tying everything in? Or who's done? Okay. Okay.
There, just the market thing.
So the last step, and this is the last thing that we'll do for this class. So the last step, once you have your schedule tied in, go to the view ribbon at the top and filter for critical. It's a built-in filter. So go to the view ribbon, filter, and critical, and filter for the critical path of your schedule. Yes. So view ribbon, filter, and critical. So now kind of scroll through your schedule and see if your critical path makes sense. That's the last step that we'll do for today. So, and this is what you would do with, with really any update or like any weekly update, any baseline. You want to look at your critical path and make sure that it looks accurate. Sometimes you might drop a logic tie or something and the critical path no longer seems like what would be reality. I find that typically like what's critical. I mean, like you would know before a schedule would tell you. You would know what's critical in the field. So if it makes sense for what you think it should be, then you're good to go. But this would be just the last step is going through and saying, oh, did I miss something? Does this look right? And just kind of validating just from your own knowledge of if your critical path is correct. So if you missed that, it's in the view ribbon. And then right in the center, there's the filter. And it has a drop down and it's a built-in filter and it's called critical. And that'll show you your schedule's critical path. So that'll make it turn red. And then the filter will filter for just the things that are critical. Yeah, but you could check and look at the ones that are red and yeah. All right.
Hey. I'll say how many guys you got working at. All of them.
Not so fast, right? It's like as we put-
Yeah, I think it's a little weighted. It's a little skewed.
I just improved my months on the next year.
You got to take that texture before framing.
Where? That's like.
You gonna put that sheet rock on the edge of that paint. Go with Michael building.
What if you go ahead and take the any
There you go.
Here, my.
Have lay it out in the parking lot.
Once they got a big lay down area.
Shoot that all over.
Yeah.
If I got a milestone date,
Okay.
tasks, I finish December 15th.
Okay.
Can I show some way where I work with
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So it'll make it so everything that's like behind schedule will turn red. So not just your critical path, but like everything that's behind. And you, yes, correct. So once the milestone pushes beyond the contractual date, so you could put a constraint in there. We'll go over that next time, but we'll put a constraint in there and then show how it can, how it'll show you if you're delayed. So then we'll actually go through the last classes like mock updates essentially, and we can actually see like how it's pushing you over as we go. That's what you're wanting to see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, but you could do it with a deadline or with a constraint. Either one, they're going to do the same thing. So. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Actual weather days is 30 days.
Right.
I'll put that
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in. The only push that in there is the very bottom.
Right.
As I have delays in my car,
Mm-hmm. You
I'll
reduce
pull a
it.
day out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Day up there.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll work. Or I guess, yeah. So if you have a weather bank, like it depends on the project if there's a weather bank in it or not. But yeah, so basically like as you encounter that weather day, like it'll either make a task take a day longer or like I'll add a weather day where it happened and then take it from the bank. Yeah. So same way. Yeah. Yeah. Weather banks are nice for certain projects and then other ones I've seen where it's just not helpful depending on. Yeah. Yeah. Depending on what it is. So. Or like if it has a bunch of turnover dates, then it's harder because then you have to have like weather banks for each turnover. So it just depends.
We said every morning. That looked like the battle of Alabama.
You all better finish and you're all sorry.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. I usually don't split tasks. I usually do it a different way. So we can go over it. I don't usually. Yeah. Right.